All right. And once again, welcome to the Western or the Bay Area Monarch Monitor Training virtual session. So welcome all. So glad you're all here. We still have quite a few more people joining, so we'll hold on for just a few minutes. But to get on with the introduction, I'm Christina Garcia with East Bay Regional Parks, and we're joined tonight with Isis Howard from Xerces Society, also Susan Ramos from East Bay Regional Parks, Adrian Laporte from San Leandro Monarch site, and I'll let her continue her own introduction in a bit. And especially our special guest is Mia Monroe, the founder of the Western Monarch Count. It's a special treat tonight. One more coming in. All right, Isis, do you want to take it away with our current tally?
Sure. So I see a lot of guesses. Looks like there's a couple for 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 17,000, 10,000. Someone's guessing 35,000. You're getting warmer. So as of today, we have over 51,000 butterflies reported across 25 sites in California. So things are off to a really good start this season, and it's going to be really exciting and interesting to see what the overwintering season brings. So thank you all for volunteering to spend some of your holiday season and winter season monitoring overwintering sites and counting butterflies with us. We're just really excited, and it's a good season to get involved.
Wonderful. Thank you, Isis.
Yeah.
Make sure we're all still here. All right. All right. Well, I am just so thrilled that everyone has signed on. If you're a new volunteer, welcome. If you've been doing this for years, thank you so much. And thanks for signing on and listening to us tonight. I want to encourage all the returning volunteers to take someone under your wing. I keep telling Mia and Susan, none of us going to be around forever. And I worry that, I know we see a lot of turnover here at the East Bay Regional Parks, lots of new naturalists coming and going. And sometimes I worry, who's going to know where the monarchs hang out at Coyote Hills if I don't show them? So think about that and find someone that you can mentor just in case. We do have monitors that move away sometimes. We lost Connie, moved back east, and she had huge areas in Monterey County. So even just knowing where to go, you can't always find that special tree where the monarchs hang out. So we'd like to share that information amongst all of us. Maybe you'll make a new buddy. And also, the more people we can get into the fold, the more the word spreads and people start caring about monarchs. So that really is the beauty of this project. All right, Isis, I think we're going to have a few words from you about the Western Monarch Count.
Yeah, so the Western Monarch Count is co-managed by the Xerces Society and Mia Monroe, one of the Count co-founders who's on this call. And the goal of the Western Monarch Count project is to track Western monarch butterflies and the status of their overwintering habitat across the West, from Mendocino County, California, down to northern Baja, California, Mexico, and at inland sites in Arizona and in Inyo County, California, too. So, this project is majorly volunteer powered, and there's like 2 or 3 paid folks who get to focus on that, and I'm one of them. And then a lot of other folks are coming in from partner organizations or volunteering their time after everything else they do in their day. And so we are so appreciative of all our volunteers, all of our regional coordinators, all of the land stewards and folks who come together from the community and join us in this really incredible effort to collect a long-term data set that helps inform conservation efforts to protect the beloved monarch butterfly. So with that, I'll pass it off to Mia, who can tell you a bit more.
Hi, I'm Mia Monroe, and I'm a volunteer with the Xerces Society. And maybe like some of you, I've had a lifetime affair with monarch butterflies. As a child, having them visit milkweed in my garden in San Carlos, visits with my grandmother to Pacific Grove. But it was when I was a ranger in the early 80s that I was invited to participate in a World Wildlife Fund funded inventory of the monarch sites up and down the coast that I really got hooked in the important endeavor we're part of, community science. And that inventory sought to identify all the sites up and down the coast through observation, museum records, talking to neighbors and landowners. It was meant to be exhaustive, and it formed the basis of the California Natural Diversity Database. But soon, with all of us who'd got together to bring that inventory to a good document, we realized that monitoring, going out and checking regularly was really important. So the inventory formed everything we knew, and the monitoring is a regular check. And it was while doing that monitoring that several really important things came up. One was to do it regularly, have some common practices that we now call protocol, to share that information, to do it at the same time, which we agreed would be around Thanksgiving, where throughout the state, that's the maximum population because they haven't been through big wintering storms yet. And so that became, this will be the 26th year, the basis for the Thanksgiving count, which Xerces now manages. And we soon realized that we were also documenting a lot of other things like the declining population, different site use, et cetera. Excuse me. And we also realized that by calling it the overwintering count, the definition of overwintering is presence into January. We needed to add a new count. So just a few years ago, Xerces added the New Year count to systematize the collection of data at that time. Bringing up the names, I've always kind of giggled a little bit because the Thanksgiving count is conducted during the fall. It's not quite winter yet. So here we are conducting the overwintering count for the Thanksgiving period while it's still fall. And it really is just an estimate, as we will learn. So that's kind of the legacy that you're all part of, is a count that's entering its 26th year. It's community science, people like all of us who are volunteers using protocol that standardizes the information, and I'll go into later just how important it is. So welcome all you community scientists into a very rewarding endeavor.
All right, wonderful. The next person we're going to hear from is Susan Ramos.
Hi, my name is Susan Ramos. I'm a naturalist with the East Bay Regional Park District. Also, right now, I'm currently an acting wildlife biologist with the Park District. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this virtual training also. I got involved by going to Ardenwood many, many years ago, and I met Mia, and I also saw lots of monarch butterflies. And I also went out to the San Leandro golf course and saw thousands many years ago, and I got hooked because it's so exciting and so rewarding to go out and help with this project, because it really makes you feel like you're making a difference, and also adding to scientific knowledge of what's out there and how many. And those decisions, all that data helps to make decisions to protect the monarchs. So it's just really super important to try and be as accurate as you can and to contribute this data. So I'm really excited to see so many volunteers this year. And I'm looking forward to working with some of you at some of the sites. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Susan. And next we're going to Adrienne.
Am I unmuted now? Okay, I'm Adrienne DuPont, and I am a naturalist. I've been a naturalist for about 30 years. I've been with the city of San Leandro since 2000. And at the time that I applied for the position with the city, I sent out a resume cold to a bunch of different places and heard back from the city of San Leandro and had no idea that this even existed. I think at the time, the person who hired me knew more about monarchs and the overwintering than I did. And then in 2001, Mia put on this amazing symposium about monarchs, and then I was hooked. I have to say, I still have the mug from that symposium, but it was really wonderful. And we traveled around and we heard from all the scientists about, and entomologists about, what makes them overwinter, and a lot of the overview. And since then, I definitely have been hooked. One of the things I sort of want to confess to everybody here tonight is that I feel I've been somewhat myopic in my view of all the sites, and I've been very focused on the San Leandro Marina. And that's, partly because I have a full-time job and 3 children, and I think that's all I could handle. I think now I want to look at other sites, and going out with Susan and going out with Christina, and just even on Oyster Bay, I really didn't stray from that site. And Isis shared a picture with us earlier that was clusters on not a eucalyptus tree. And that's also something that is, I think, enriching for us as volunteers to see them not only on one type of tree, but to see them in different places. There's a lot to be said for that institutional knowledge about, where they might be this time of year and where they move next time. But I think for that personal growth of as a volunteer to be able to go from site to site is also something really great. But so I will be the San Leandro expert, but these 3 ladies and Isis, the 4 of them, they definitely have a wider breadth, I would say, about all the other sites. And I think the last time I was at Natural Bridges or Pacific Grove probably was with Mia when we went several years ago. So I'm happy to see so many people and looking forward to working with you.
All right, great. Thank you, Adrienne. So I just want to give an overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. First, we're going to do a quick review of monarch biology and migration with Susan. Then Isis will bring us up to date on conservation and population status. Mia will talk about the different Bay Area sites, set some expectations for volunteers, and then Isis has some more information about volunteer registration, which I see most of you have done already. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of monitoring your overwintering site. Finally, we're going to review what we're going to do on Sunday, and I hope most of you can make it, even though it looks like it might rain. But really, it's a chance to go to San Leandro Marina and see the largest overwintering site in the East Bay. So we're so thrilled that there are pretty good numbers there this year. I work here at Ardenwood, which used to be quite a sizable site, and I'm really sad to say no butterflies yet. But maybe later, we don't know. So we'll go over at the end what to bring and where to meet for Sunday's session. And we will also be sending out more information by email about that. We have a lot to go over tonight, so we're going to try to zoom through this pretty quickly. We will try to get to some questions at the end. In the meantime, if you do have questions, if you want to put them in the chat, Isis and I will monitor them, and we can try to answer them as they come up with the appropriate person. And then we'll have more time at the end, we hope. But we want to get out of here by 8 on the dot. So let's move straight into Susan's presentation.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Looks good, Susan.
Oh, good. All right. So let me go back here because I'm supposed to be talking about the Western monarch biology and ecology. So I'm just going to do a super brief look at the life cycle, migration, and overwintering. Just this might be a review for some of you. It might be some new information or some fun facts for those of you who have been doing this in the past. So, whoops, I don't see my screen, sorry. Just a moment here. Here. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So as far as the life cycle, you probably know it's a regular complete metamorphosis, which has 4 stages, which is the egg, and then the larval stage, a pupa stage, and then the adult. So it's a complete metamorphosis that a lot of insects have. With monarchs, the larval food, the host plant is milkweed. You probably have been hearing a lot about milkweed. So the 2 most common native milkweeds are the showy milkweed and the narrowleaf milkweed, at least here in the San Francisco Bay Area. They do recommend that as far as planting milkweed, that you do not plant milkweed within 5 miles of an overwintering site. And so you'll be finding out where the overwintering sites are in the East Bay, so you can kind of figure out where you live. But the reason for that is that we don't really want the monarchs to just come out of the overwintering cycle and then just lay their eggs, because after they lay their eggs, they die. And so we want them to start their migration and to move out a little farther from the overwintering sites. So that's kind of the reasoning behind not having milkweed at or close to overwintering sites. So the females will go out and they'll lay their eggs on a milkweed plant. They lay a single egg, but they can lay up to 100 eggs throughout their lifetime. And the caterpillars will hatch out of the egg. It only takes about 4 to 10 days for the egg to hatch out. Caterpillars will be munching away and growing. They go through 5 instars, which means they start out as a little tiny caterpillar, and then they get to be, they'll go through their growth period where they'll come out of their exoskeleton. They'll be a little bit larger, and they'll do that about 5 times until they're about 2 inches long. And then they'll find a leaf and they'll hang upside down from that leaf, sort of in a J shape. And that's where they'll start to go into their chrysalis, or also known as a pupa. And that's where they completely go into this living soup, where their whole body just sort of breaks down into this liquid, and they completely rearrange their cells and go through this transformation where they will become an actual butterfly. And so it takes a little while for them to hatch out of the chrysalis and to pump up their wings and dry off a bit. So they're very, very vulnerable at that time when they're just coming out of the chrysalis. And then they will then fly off to find a mate. So there's a way to tell the difference between the male and the female monarchs. The females have thicker veins, a little bit darker, thicker veins, as you can see on this side. The veins are just a little bit wider. The males will have thinner veins, and they have these 2 little spots on the hind wings, and they're kind of like scent glands. And they don't really know exactly what they're used for, from what I've read or what I've heard. But anyway, that's one way you can tell the difference between the males and the females. So just a overview again of the life cycle. You know, they start off as an egg, turn into a caterpillar. They go through those 5 stages of caterpillar-ness, and then they'll go into the pupa, which will be in there for about 2 weeks, and then they'll turn into the adult. So this whole cycle for most of the monarchs they only live about in total 6 weeks, you know, well, 3 to 5 weeks. 6 weeks at the most, except for the last generation. And that's the generation that's going to actually do the migrating. And so those butterflies will actually live to be anywhere from 6 to 9 months old, unlike all of the others. So let me show you the migration. Well, let me tell you a little about first about what my monarchs need. So they need a place to breed. They need that migratory habitat. They need milkweed because that's where they're going to be laying their eggs, and the caterpillars are going to be munching away on the milkweed. That milkweed makes them taste bad, and so that's a really good defense against for predators. They also need, the adults need flowers and the nectar in order to provide food and energy for their migration. So that's a really important thing that a lot of people forget about. And then they need this overwintering habitat, which is forested groves where there's nectar nearby for them to feed on. And of course, they need protection from so many things, from development, especially from pesticides and fertilizers and so many other things. So, but we'll talk about all that later. I just wanted to give you that briefly. So as far as the migration, it's pretty interesting. So right now it's fall, so they're going to be overwintering along the coast of California and also down here in Mexico. The dividing line between the eastern monarchs and the western monarchs is the Rocky Mountains. And then there's a little bit of mix over here in Arizona. But most of the monarchs are migrating down to the overwintering sites in Mexico and California. And then in the spring, then they'll go back the other way. And so, like I was saying, it's going to take a few generations for them to go farther north. So let me go back to this other slide. So they'll overwinter here, and then they'll start to move out. They'll mate usually at their overwintering sites or nearby on a hot, nice, warm, sunny day in March or maybe the end of February. Then they'll start mating, and they'll start heading north and east. From Mexico, they'll head up to the middle of the United States and up into Canada. Here along the coast, they'll head north and east and start making their migration up towards Washington and Oregon and the southern part of Canada. And so it's going to take about 5 generations for these monarchs to mate, lay their eggs. That generation hatches out. They will fly north and east, they'll mate, lay their eggs. And so it takes about 5 generations. And then they call it the super generation that is reached here in the summertime. Those are the ones that will not mate. They get cues from the weather, starting to get a little colder. The daylight time is shortening a little bit. And then they'll start heading down and making their migration farther to the south. And so that's the generation that lives a little bit longer. So again, they're heading down along the coast here in California if they are west of the Rocky Mountains. If they're east of the Rocky Mountains, they're heading down into Mexico. There are some that are on the East Coast that also head down to Florida. So where are they going in Mexico? They're going down into the fir forests of Mexico, and that's where they're overwintering. So I've never been down to that, but I've seen pictures. I know Chris has gone on a trip. That's one of my dream vacations. I would love to go down and see the monarchs overwintering in Mexico. That would be amazing. There are thousands and thousands. But here along the coast of California, the western population is overwintering right along the ocean or along the San Francisco Bay. And that's where we get our East Bay monarchs overwintering. So there's about 400 different overwintering sites throughout California. So you can imagine, we talked about how important it is for community science. I mean, we need volunteers out there because there's so many sites. And I'm sure Isis will talk about this too, but the last couple of years, we've had more people checking more sites than have ever happened before. So because we have so many people out there that are interested and that are willing to help out. So what are the monarchs looking for when they're going to these overwintering sites? They're trying to find protection from wind, protection from freezing temperatures. They're usually in areas that are kind of where there's some dappled sunlight. The trees are in sort of a donut or circular shape. And so they're a little bit protected from the weather. They also need to be near a nectar source. Because those adults need that energy, they need the food in order to survive through the winter. So on a sunny day, they will disperse. Usually it's after 10 o'clock when it's warmed up past 55 degrees, and they'll fly off and feed for a while. And then towards the afternoon, they'll come back and cluster again for the overwintering site. They also need some adequate humidity because they don't want to, they would get too dried out. So they have to be in areas usually again near the coast or near the San Francisco Bay where there's some extra moisture. As I mentioned, the overwintering monarchs are usually in sexual or reproductive diapause, which means they're not mating throughout the winter. And then they're again, just flying short distances to feed. Now, there's been some interesting things going on too, because now they think there might be a population that is here year round in the East Bay, because a lot of people last year in like December, they were seeing monarchs laying eggs, and on warm sunny days, they saw some mating going on. So we're not really sure. And there's more testing it needs to be done. And we can talk more about that later too. But there's about 15 sites in the East Bay. And so we're going to be trying to assign volunteers to different sites to make sure that all the sites are found, all the sites are counted. So we have good records and data for each of those locations. Some of them are public and it's easy to get to, like at a park at Oyster Bay. You can just walk up and check out the trees. Some are a little more difficult where they might be on private land or in a golf course. And those things have to be arranged ahead of time. And the numbers of people going, is a little bit more limited, but we'll be talking about that as well. So this is where you all come in. This is where we need your help to do the Thanksgiving count and the New Year's count. This is where we need volunteers to go out to all the sites and check it out. And monarchs are absolutely amazing. I just wanted to end with this slide because hopefully I've given you some glimpse of their life. And what to me is so amazing is that these monarchs have never been to this overwintering site. And every year they come back to the same spot, even though they've never been there before, but they're able to find it. They are able to find that special location, and then we're able to see them. So I'm hoping that you're going to get as excited about monarchs as we all are. So, and just coming tonight, hopefully will spark your interest. So I'm going to pass it on to, I believe it's Isis, who's going to talk about some of the conservation, some of the challenges that monarchs are facing right now. So I'm going to stop my share. Thank you.
Great, thank
Hi,
you.
everyone. Susan, thanks. That was amazing. I hope you all can hear me all right. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. So I'm going to try, I created a lot of slides, probably too many slides. So I'm going to go through this pretty fast, but again, pop your questions in the chat. We'll circle back with answers and get some links to you for any resources. So let's see here. I am going to go over some basics of monarch butterfly conservation, kind of targeted towards Western monarchs, as Susan discussed some of these different populations. So we're going to be focusing mostly on Western monarchs, but there will be a couple of things in here for monarch butterflies in general as a species. We'll talk about population status, the threats and solutions to some of the issues that monarchs are facing. And then we'll take a little peek at some current research happening in and around the Bay Area. And then I'll pass it off to Mia, who will dive into a little bit more of the local specifics. So we'll start with the basics. Monarch butterflies are one of the most recognizable and iconic butterflies in North America. They hold a lot of cultural significance for many people in the United States and Mexico and beyond. The egg and caterpillar stages only occur on the milkweed plants. Susan kind of went over a lot, like all the great biology and ecology of monarchs, so I'll kind of skip over that part. But in 2014, the Xerces Society and our conservation partners submitted a petition proposing the listing of the monarch butterfly under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. 6 years later, on December 15th of 2020, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced that listing the monarch butterfly under the Endangered Species Act was warranted, but precluded by higher priority actions. So in making this decision, monarch butterflies became a candidate species under the Endangered Species Act. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is going to circle back in fiscal year 2024 to make an official listing decision. Now, in July of 2022, this year, the monarch butterfly was categorized as an endangered species on the IUCN Red List of threatened species. So this caused a little bit of confusion about the conservation or listing status of monarch butterflies. And I just want to clarify that here. So monarchs are not technically listed under the Endangered Species Act at this time. The IUCN designation doesn't provide any regulatory protections or affect the laws and policies that currently apply to monarchs in California and beyond. So again, next year or in 2024, fiscal year 2024, we'll find out if monarchs are going to be listed under the ESA. Okay, monarchs are a flagship species, so they're really, really important. They serve as an ambassador to other pollinators and invertebrates that might also be facing declines. Generally, the declines in monarchs reflect somewhat the declines in other butterflies, bees, beneficial insects, and conservation efforts and awareness around monarch butterflies ends up benefiting all these other pollinators too. So yeah, they're incredible for so many reasons. So Susan already went over the different populations of monarch butterflies. Again, we're going to be focusing on Western monarchs for the rest of this presentation. Okay, so we're going into population status. Here's the general trend that we've observed over the years. So since the 1980s, when low millions were observed, now monarch butterflies in the West are down to the thousands. And this marks a more than 95% population decline over the past several decades. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of other butterflies are also declining. In California, there are 15 federally listed and 2 candidate butterfly species and 1 listed moth. And here's the graph of the Thanksgiving counts from the Western Monarch Count Project from 1997 when it was conceived to the results from last year's 2021 Thanksgiving count. So we've seen a 100-fold increase from the 2020 counts when we got record lows, and it scared a lot of us. And so last year we saw this uptick, and there were a lot of questions about, what does this mean? Are they recovering? Is this a rebound? Are they good now? But just a reminder about shifting baselines. Several decades ago, we had millions. And so this still represents 95% decline. But there were a lot of highlights from last year's season too. We saw an uptick in the population. We had record high volunteer efforts. We discovered 5 new overwintering sites, and we had a ton of media interest. And a lot more people became aware of the Western monarch count and how they could get involved and help. But of course, the big question, we're all wondering why the uptick. And so we know that butterflies, monarch butterflies included, their populations, like all insects, are naturally bouncy. So they fluctuate from year to year in response to the temperature, rainfall, the availability of food, and other factors. So invertebrates and butterflies are really sensitive to these sorts of factors. And I recommend reading the bounciness of butterflies if you want to get into some of the theories around why we saw this uptick. Right now, a lot of these are just theories. It's going to take some years and some more research to really kind of identify some of the leading factors causing this uptick that we just witnessed. But in general, some of the hypotheses that are presented include the potentially some mixing with the Eastern population. And then there's, talk about resident monarchs having some sort of role, and whether or not monarchs always overwinter and migrate to their overwintering sites, or do sometimes they stay in the Bay Area or Southern California or areas where they can breed year round. And then there's talk about how wildfires and other weather phenomenon have affected populations. There's talk about the increase of breeding habitat. People are planting more milkweeds. Many of you have told us that you saw a lot more monarchs in your gardens this year. So there's a lot of things that could have potentially led to this uptick, but there's no perfect single answer I can provide, so I'm really sorry about that. All right, I'm going to skip over this to save some time. Basically, I just want to highlight the importance again. So you all, as volunteers for the Western monarch count, are the ones who are collecting this incredible data that guides these conservation and management efforts. And you give us a sense of how many butterflies remain in the West to begin the spring breeding population. So I cannot emphasize enough how important your time and efforts are for this project. So thank you again. All right, threats and solutions. So there are a lot of different threats that monarchs face. Some of the main ones include loss and degradation of overwintering habitat, loss and degradation of breeding and migratory habitat, pesticide contamination, climate change, and other factors like OE, non-native predators, etc. And there's lots of solutions. So there's many ways that you can get involved and help monarchs. Some of the solutions include restoring and protecting overwintering habitat, restoring and protecting migratory and breeding habitat, reducing risk from pesticide exposure, participating in community science and research, and advocating for monarchs and other insects. So this could look like talking to your family and friends, engaging in your community, advocating to policymakers and leaders in your local community and beyond. So I was going to go over a bunch of these threats and solutions. I'll still scroll through them and pull out some of the key takeaways, but one of the threats, well, I was going to go over the first 3. So loss of overwintering habitat. I think a lot of this has to do with a lack of awareness, but now we're getting the word out. So hopefully a lot of this habitat damage can be mitigated or minimized in the future. A solution would be to protect and restore. So here you can see some great folks replanting their sites or prepping sites. Anyone can get involved. The work you all will do to collect habitat data for the Western monarch count is going to help inform some of these efforts. So it's exciting. Okay, loss of breeding habitat was another one I mentioned. So, you know, there's a lot of development, there's a lot of transitioning natural landscapes to ag landscapes, or building places. And there's definitely times and places where this needs to happen, and it's so important too. And we've got to house and feed our people. And also, we need to be aware of the key critical habitat that monarchs use throughout their life cycle and migration. And so one of the solutions is you can help protect and restore breeding habitat by planting native plants. You can rewild areas near you in your yards, or ask, parks and your farmers at the farmers market if they're installing hedgerows, and just kind of encourage that. I'll skip over this, but we do have a lot of resources on Xerces website if you want to check out how to create high quality monarch habitat, what plants to pick, etc. You're going to want to protect and manage existing habitat. Here's a couple pictures of folks who picked up our Xerces habitat kits and planted a bunch of monarch and pollinator plants last year. All right, pesticide contamination was that other threat I wanted to cover. Pesticides include herbicides, insecticides, fungicides. They have short and long-term risks and trade-offs. Contamination is super sneaky. There has been a lot of research that has shown that even the plants marked as pollinator-friendly plants in our nurseries have really high numbers of different pesticides on them. And it's kind of frustrating. And you're going to the nursery and you go straight to the pollinator plant section and you think, I'm good, these are all marked, it's perfect for my garden. But the truth is that they have just as many pesticides in many cases as some of these other plants. So our recommendations for you are to buy Be Safe plants and support your local native plant nurseries. You can just start up a dialogue with them and ask how they're growing their plants. But a lot of these native plant nurseries will not use pesticides because they're providing plants for restoration activities. So definitely check those out and do some Googling after this presentation if you're an avid gardener. And then for buying Be Safe plants, seek out organic plants and seeds, avoid plants grown with neonicotinoids and other pesticides and systemic insecticides. And just like I said, ask your nursery how they're growing their plants and see if you can get some answers. And if you don't know, what you can do is purchase your plants. You can replace your soil in the plants, as that sometimes holds a lot of these pesticides, and then you can quarantine your new plants. Okay, Bay Area research. So there's a couple projects happening in the Bay Area if you want to get involved beyond the Western monarch count. So you can collect already dead monarchs and send them into a researcher at Colorado State University. They're testing the genomics and trying to see what the relationships are between resident monarchs and migratory monarchs. There's some goals. There's also folks at UC Davis who are surveying resident monarch populations and conducting other monarch research. And there's a tagging project in the works with Pollinator Posse and Monarch Joint Venture. So when that becomes officialized, we'll share out information on how you could get involved in tag monarchs too. And there's lots of other community science opportunities. We have tons of resources, and that's it. So I will stop sharing. Sorry for going fast. I think I still went over time.
Thanks for zooming through that. We're going to make up time here. All right, I think next we're going to hear from Mia. Is that right? Yeah.
I'm just trying to share my screen. Sometimes on my government computer, it's a little tough. Give it one more try here. You know what I was going to show Isis was the homepage from Western Monarch Count.
Do you want me to pull that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me do that. 1 second.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, share screen.
This is kind of part of my hidden scheme to have you all hypnotized to go to this page constantly, because there are so many good resources, training, protocol, forms, etc. So the community science you're about to embark on is so important. It helps identify short-term and long-term trends. It contributes information to scientists and also critical information to land managers. It also forms the basis for so much of what media journalists share out there constantly. So the Western Monarch count is the real gold standard in information. Now, I have, just to let you know how important this is, and that's why I wanted to kind of hypnotize you to go to that page often. That's my go-to page. But a few things that I just wanted to share with you is this is training for the San Francisco Bay region. So that's all the way from Mendocino, Sonoma, Marin counties, the East Bay counties of Solano, Contra Costa, Alameda, also Santa Clara, San Mateo, and San Francisco. That's our San Francisco Bay region. And I think we kind of have people from all those different areas. And each of us, Chris, myself, Susan, Adrian, and Isis, we're your regional coordinators, meant to help you walk through the protocol, tips, what you see, be excited with you, give you encouragement. So just to let you know, you're part of a whole Bay Area team. And this year, it's already so exciting because the last few years have been really, really difficult. That trend that others have been sharing, the precipitous decline in monarchs, has been really, really scary. And that also means that there are few monarchs in our yards and next to none and often none at our overwintering sites. And last year, while the rest of the state was excited about the bounce that others were talking about, we didn't have that bounce. It was still very, very low to none at our San Francisco Bay region overwintering sites. There were like just a couple of hundred in Marin. Ardenwood, as you heard from Chris, had none. Most of the sites had 0 monarchs. So this year, when already some of you are saying, I'm seeing them at Mare Island, there's already clusters at Elm Cale. There's thousands at San Leandro Golf Course. This is very exciting because we haven't seen something like this for a while. But there's still kind of low numbers compared to what you saw Isis posted about Pismo or Natural Bridges or Pacific Grove. And so one bit of advice I have for you, because a lot of our sites are historic, which means we haven't seen monarchs, but we want to check. Some of them are at the edge, like our northern ones. We don't know what we're really going to see. We really haven't had a winter storm. Even though we got rain today, we still haven't seen a winter storm. The monarchs are still in migration. We don't know what's ahead. So we want you to do some preparation right now. And one bit of advice is go right now to where the monarchs are. Because believe it or not, it is hard to find monarchs at overwintering sites. When they're clustering, they look like dead leaves. They blend into the trees. They're hard to find. So use this time like Susan did to go to Pacific Grove, go to Natural Bridges, find the monarchs. Pretend that, just don't talk to the docents at first. See if you can find them. Practice counting. Match your counts to theirs. This is a really good thing to do right now, is to develop that site image for what clustering looks like. Because what we're looking for is clustering overwintering monarchs. And when they're tucked into the grove, they're hard to find. And once you find them, then there's the next challenge of counting them. So what we're really encouraging you to do is, after this training, of course, come next Sunday for our field visit and training, but also get out there and first go to a site that has monarchs and get practice. And second, go to the site that you've signed up for, because this is what I'm doing right now. Our monarchs there. And I go in the middle of the day when it's sunny. I look for the monarchs sunning and fluttering. and that's often a clue to where the overwintering site is. Remember, a monarch nectaring or a monarch flying is not an overwintering clustering monarch. It's a monarch on the move. But if you see some, it's often a clue that they're there, of course, they're present. And also, if there's some of them, that could be a clue of where to go look for the overwintering. Now, this is a time to also go check your site, locate it, find out where to park, see if you need permission, how to have safe access, how to see where the monarchs could be fluttering and sunning, and look from various viewpoints. Ask locals if they've seen them yet. Check with experienced people. Where did you see them last? This is a time to, quote, do your homework. So besides looking at that westernmonarchcount.org page, get out there and start scouting. Okay, so what we request, and I hope you've all signed up for, is there's 2 counts ahead. One is the Thanksgiving count. So that is November 22nd through December 4th this year. And the New Year's count, which is December 24th through January 8th. And we want you to make 2 visits during that time. And 2 visits could be scouting and going back to get a count. It could be going after or before a significant weather event, but try to make 2 counts during each of the count period. So you could be possibly making 5 visits. Check things out now, your 2 Thanksgiving counts and your 2 New Year's counts. And so we want you to go then. Now, the other thing is that we want you to work as partners. It could be a friend, your partner, your kids, but working as a partner team is so important. That way you can have twice as many eyes to look for the clusters. You can compare counts. One of you can be taking notes. One of you could be talking to people walking by. So we really, really encourage you to be in partners. Now, there's the finding the monarchs, there's the counts, but there's also doing the habitat assessment. So look on westernmonarchcount.org and you'll see the habitat assessment. We really want you to at least do the short habitat assessment. And that gives us a real good description of the trees, the where the monarchs are in the grove, what the understory is, what the condition of the site is. And so that's a little bit of homework. Figure out what kind of trees you have. Are they Monterey pine, Monterey cypress, what kind of eucalyptus, what kind of understory, etc. Take some pictures. That's always really, really helpful. And it also gets a good GPS coordinate too. So you've got your count set up. And another good reason to get several counts on your calendar is the rain date, because we know that the Thanksgiving count and the New Year's count are during the rainy season, keeping our fingers crossed, lots of rain. So you need to have a backup date. And also it's the holiday period. So we know you're all busy, so plan ahead so you get some dates on the calendar there. Now, when you get to your site, here's some tips. I discussed this with my husband, who's an ACE observer, and I watched Susan Ramos, who got our 5 Butterfly Star Award last year for finding clusters when we all kind of were wondering what was going on. But here's some tips. You want to scout ahead because they're kind of hard to find, and you want to find the monarchs during the middle of the day flying, and if there's a number of them, that's a good chance. Now you notice that I'm talking about scouting, but I have to really emphasize to you, and I'm not watching the chat, but some of you are saying, I read the protocol. I'm supposed to go early. I'm supposed to go bright and early in the morning when it's cold, because then the monarchs are in the clusters. A+ to all of you who noted that, because you want to scout and find where the clusters are, because they're hard, but then you have to go back when you do your count bright and early in the morning when it's chilly, less than 55 degrees, because then the monarchs are in the cluster site and you'll get an accurate count. So you want to find the clusters, then you want to go back bright and early, and you want to take time to count. You want to compare with your partner, and If you're not close, then you'll need to recount. You want to, one tip is to find a cluster where you can do a really good count and then multiply how many areas are like that, how many clusters are like that. You want to look from various places. You might want to make a chart so you don't double count. You might want to take pictures, and you really want to look for tags as well, because already here in Marin, we have a tag from a butterfly that was tagged in Oregon, flew 292 miles to a garden in San Rafael. So looking for tags and contributing to science that way is really, really important. I wanted to just emphasize a few other things. Your safety is very important. Look ahead of time if there's poison oak or challenging access. And also you're going to attract attention. So be prepared to share with others what you're doing, how important the count is. You might even offer your information in case they neighbors locate other clusters. People may want to know what should they plant. And of course, since you're at an overwintering site, nectar plants is the answer. You'll probably get into a can I plant milkweed question. And again, your answer is nectar plants. You can, of course, refer them to the Xerces page so that they can follow you along. And your neighbors are really, really important. I kind of am in a difficult area in Marin because Isis was describing many of the important areas to protect and restore overwintering sites, but most of mine are threatened right now with fuel reduction efforts, which is tree trimming and limbing, which drastically changes the wind patterns and the protective qualities of the overwintering sites. So that's kind of some tips. I just want to emphasize that your regional coordinators are there to help you with any of those steps. If you don't find monarchs, talk to us. We might have some suggestions. If you want tips on counting, you might want to show us some pictures. If you need to identify trees, we're glad to help. There's also all those resources on westernmonarchcount.org. So we romped through a lot of this, but I hope that some of you have a chance to come next Sunday when we can do this together in the field. And some of us will be going out with you to get you off to a good launch. So you have a little bit of time to get ready before November 22nd rolls around. Thank you, Isis, Chris, Susan, and Adrian.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Mia. I always learn something from you. We have a question. Does the partner need to be another Xerces counter? I think Mia or Isis, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I can. Well, it doesn't. They don't have to be an official, like Monarch expert. But we do want 2 volunteers or 2 monitors who have knowledge of the protocol, who have gone through some form of training. And then we do want folks who participate to register via the sign up form. So I think technically we would want those folks to register as a volunteer as well if they're going to come out with you and participate as your monitoring partner in the count.
Yeah, I think I would also say, if you're super experienced, you can train people in the field too. If you're both new, though, you should probably both go through the training and go with someone who is experienced. And the Thanksgiving count starts. It is November 12th. So coming up in about 2 weeks on a Saturday. So that's correct, 12 November. Signing up for a specific site, you want to talk to your regional coordinator. And then as far as the days go, by next time we meet or before then, the people in this meeting, Susan and Mia and myself, that lead counts in different areas, will be trying to put together some dates where we'll go out as a group in some of our sites. So if you don't have a partner and you'd like to visit a site for the first time, you can come along with a group of people. And we can also try to coordinate with you. We can't always coordinate with everyone individually, so we try to get these big groups together. So at least we can show several people all at once where the particular site is, because you go to something like Coyote Hills, like where in Coyote Hills? It might be hard to find that particular eucalyptus grove, and then like where in the grove? Ardenwood has acres of eucalyptus, so it's good to go with someone who can point out those certain spots that you want to check. All right, keep those questions coming and we'll try to get to them. But right now we want to hear from Adrian. Are you ready?
Yeah, so I was just we've kind of started large and we're going to kind of pinpoint down to where we're going on Sunday to have an on-site training at the San Leandro Marina. It's now called the Monarch Bay Golf Course. So monarchs were first seen in the 70s at the golf course, and then they did they kind of did some development, some changes, and now it's an active golf course on both sides of the street on Fairway. And where the monarchs are now is a little grove that is not part of the fairway, that is off onto itself. I think it's like therapy going out there. It's just this beautiful, amazing spot. And it's almost like they know that if they were in the middle of the golf course, that we wouldn't be able to go out there and see them. One of the significant things about the San Leandro site, in addition to the large numbers that we've seen there traditionally, is that like at Ardenwood, it's one of the few places where there's naturalist-led programs. So we do school programs. So kids come out, they see the monarchs, they learn about them. And as I said, I've been doing programs since 2000, but the first programs were done in 1997. So since 1997, school kids in the Bay Area have been coming out to see the monarchs. And I think that's really important because of those kids that I started with in 2000. Oh my gosh, they're 22 right now. I just did the math there. So anyway, let's see. I'm a proud San Leandro resident. Lately, they're planning to do some construction, which is another reason why folks mentioned earlier that it's great to have data to talk about why it's important to save the sites and what kind of conservation plans are appropriate. This year, we're lucky to have the Alameda County Resource Conservation District, who has funded a site assessment of the area. So I think I was going to show just a quick little map and also just kind of a little bit of logistics for everybody. The address where we're meeting, and I know Christina will send this out. It's 13699 Aurora Drive in San Leandro, and it's the Mulford Marina Branch Library on the corner of Aurora and Fairway. And we'll have to take it's a very short walk from the library to where the monarchs are. We have a little kind of a secret gate. The site might be on a golf course, but it is publicly owned. So it's owned by the city of San Leandro. And I'm just gonna, if I can, figure out how to share my screen. Let's see. Well, I cannot. I will show you on Sunday. One of the things that I've used at our site, at the San Leandro site, is a map of the grove, and we're in the process. My partner Jennifer Trevis, she's on this call with us today. She's with the Alameda County Resource Conservation District. She's going to try and digitize it for us, and it's interesting to see the difference between 20 years ago or 22 years ago, and now we've lost some trees. We're talking about, do we plant them? Do we plant eucalyptus trees? And the city of San Leandro is the one who is also funding part of this grant. They're thinking about turning the library where we're going to meet into a lifelong learning center. And so the idea would be that there's going to be a classroom for folks like us who are doing a training to meet to talk about butterflies. Maybe there would be art there, and then we would walk out through a path that they're going to create directly to the site. I'm really excited for everybody to come and see it on Sunday. You can park in the parking lot there of the library, and I know Christine is going to send out some more specific information. But we won't have access to a restroom right there, but there are restrooms at the Monarch Bay Golf Course. So you'll be able to either kind of do that really quickly and then come on back, or if somebody needs to, can kind of sneak down there, but it's a bit of a walk. And I think we're going to fall back on that day, on Sunday, so we'll get a little bit of extra hour to sleep and come on and see the butterflies. But I'm really excited to see everyone. And I wanted to point out that Susan, we went out, the group of us women and some other folks went out. I think it was, gosh, we figured out the day I think it was last year. And I've been looking at these trees, looking for monarchs, and we were about to leave. They're not anywhere where they traditionally are. And, Susan's being very thorough and sees a cluster. I think it was like 25 or 30 on a tree where they had never been before. So I think that if you are someone who has traditionally done a site, I agree with what Nia said earlier. And I think, Christina, take somebody under your wing and train them, and there will be a new set of eyes. And I'm going to be probably out pretty much every other Friday. So if there is anybody who's relatively new who would like to come along, I'm probably going to be out there every Friday between now and the end of the year. Maybe a couple days or around holidays, but as Christina said, I'll share those dates with her and she can share them out with everybody. And if somebody wants to come along for their own edification or just to see monarchs in a different spot, then I'd be happy to be with folks for that purpose. So very excited to see everybody on Sunday. And thank you, Christina, for all the work all of you have done to put all this together.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Adrienne. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is going to see other sites. And I've been working here at Ardenwood for, gosh, like 25 years. And so really it's the best thing in the world to lead monarch tours, or it was the best thing in the world up until 3 years ago, to show people monarchs every weekend all winter. I can't ask for a more rewarding way to spend the winter. But to get to go to San Leandro, I've always heard about it. I've only been there once or twice. And to go there with Adrienne is just a wonderful treat. So I know some of you are super experienced counters, and I would love to visit your sites as well. Just because I feel like, oh my gosh, what if that volunteer doesn't come back next year? I don't know where it is. So really, let's all share with each other, try to get together, show someone where this special site is that you are taking care of, so we can pass that information along, because I know I'm not getting any younger and I don't want that information to go away. Let's see, we're going to catch up on a few of I think we've been keeping up with most of the chat. There was one question I wanted to get back to about the eucalyptus trees, because I get asked that all the time here at Ardenwood, like, where did they go before the eucalyptus? And there's a great site. I really recommend going there in Santa Cruz if you're in the area, called Lighthouse Field. Maybe some of you have been there. It often has a big population. And Jessica Griffith, she's one of the coordinators from further south, I think, than Ventura County, wrote a great paper about how the monarchs are preferring the native trees to the eucalyptus. And Lighthouse Field is an excellent spot to see that in action. It's a mixed grove of the cypress trees that you find along the coast and eucalyptus. And when you go there, you're only going to find monarchs in the cypress. Every time I've been there, just in the cypress. So they really do like our native trees. But what do we have left in these urbanized areas? are big groves of eucalyptus. People are always asking me, oh, there's a eucalyptus tree in my backyard. Is that going to be a monarch site? Well, no, it's not. It's not one tree they're looking for. They need a whole habitat. They need wind protection. It's quite a science. So that's what we have now in our open spaces are these big stands of eucalyptus. And luckily, the monarchs like them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any habitat. It's really fascinating what goes into preserving these sites. So yeah, bring binoculars for sure. That's the best thing to use to count. We were talking amongst ourselves like, oh, should we bring a scope? You know, scopes are really great for convincing people that, yeah, those are not dried leaves up there. Those are actually butterflies. But for counting, a good pair of binoculars is going to be the best thing you can bring with you.
So Chris, should we
Yeah,
go over all the things to bring
yeah. Why
on
don't we
Sunday?
do that? Mia, would you do that if you have it in front of you?
Yeah. So first of all, we're meeting 9 to 11, so it could be kind of chilly. So dress to be standing out in the chill possibly, and good shoes for standing. Bring binoculars. Bring a clipboard and paper to take notes and make your own sketches. Bring water. We suggest a camera. We also really recommend you bringing your phone so we can help you get loaded up with Survey 123 and practice. Am I forgetting anything, Adrian or Susan or Chris?
You know, I was going to mention as far as shoes, if you have shoes that are a little bit waterproof, because the grass tends to be a little dewy and you might walk away with cold feet.
Great. Also, Chris is going to send out reminders with a lot of the information that we've been sharing in the chat, plus directions to get there. So please look for a reminder. And I want to really apologize. We threw lots of dates at you. So November 6th is our field training at San Leandro Golf Course. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting to be able to say its new name. What is it, Adrian? That is so exciting, that recognition of its value.
The Monarch Bay Golf Course, and they changed the street name to Monarch Bay Drive. However, I am working with the city because it is not a monarch on the street sign. It's a different butterfly.
Yeah, that was a good catch of yours. We love all butterflies and all butterflies need our support, but for that one, it should be a monarch, just like it is when you go to Santa Cruz and you see all over the monarchs on the street signs there, and down at Pismo, and see Monarch Mania at Pacific Grove, and even the police cars at Elwood and Goleta have monarchs on the side there. So it's wonderful seeing monarchs recognized in the communities that have overwintering sites. But anyway, the next date we have for you is November 6th, which is our training at Monarch Bay Golf Course. And then the Thanksgiving count starts November 12th and goes through December 4th. And the New Year's count is December 24th through January 8th. So sorry for all that date confusion, but hopefully you've got all those things on your calendar. It's also been kind of intriguing listening to the tree discussion. One thing to really echo about Chris saying getting out and seeing other sites, watching monarch behavior. You know, when I went to Natural Bridges, it took me a while to realize they aren't on blue gum eucalyptus there. They're on red gum. So there are even other eucalyptus, and talk about the site histories and the efforts for restoration going on, how they move around depending on the weather. Going to other sites really expands your understanding really quickly. So those were a few things that came to mind. Oh gosh, look at all those good references that ISIS is putting in there, including the interactive map. That was a new feature this year. So thanks for making sure people know about that. ISIS, did you say that we're going to kind of be on an inside crowd after we're trained and getting going, you're going to slip us information on updates that we just keep among ourselves because it's not public, and we're going to learn about opportunities to join each other. And did I hear you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah. That's a good reminder. Let me share my screen really quick. Sorry, my cat. Ooh, cat just got hooked on me. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so on the volunteer information page on Western Monarch Count website under Help Count Monarchs, volunteer information. Number 2 is sign up for our volunteer communications newsletter. So this is from the Xerces Society, and you're just signing up for Western Monarch Count volunteer news. So we send probably 5 to maybe 10 messages between now and March to volunteers. So it's not too many. We won't spam you. It'll only be volunteer related. So little reminders to submit your data, little updates on where we're at in the count. You all will hopefully hear first before we announce the count tallies to the general public. We like to inform our volunteers and those who participated about the results. So the night before or a day before we announce everything, we'll send you an insider's scoop. And you all will get these little updates throughout the season too, if you're signed up for our communications page. But yeah, thanks Mia for plugging that, because there is some incentive. We won't email you throughout the rest of the year. It's just for volunteers, little reminders, little updates, and you'll get the results first.
I had a couple of other thoughts. It's kind of overwhelming due to COVID. This is the first training we've had in a couple of years. And it's really wonderful to be able to bring a group of volunteers together again and train in person, especially when there's monarchs to see. So it's just kind of awesome to feel like we're gathering again. And also just looking at the list of people and the sites, there's a lot of work going on. When Adrian was talking about the new name and also where the monarchs are is now a sanctuary rather than part of the golf course, that's a big change. And Chris was mentioning Coyote Hills, that's a site under restoration. Ditto Oyster Bay. Ardenwood's been long a site that's had a plan and assessment and restoration work going on. Point Pinole, Albany Hill, Gill Tract, the Bellina sites. It's Diane up at Sea Ranch. They're looking at what to do there. It's kind of overwhelming, the amount of work going on, not only in our gardens and our breeding area, but our overwintering sites too. They're getting attention. So you might even go to sites where work is underway or things are happening. So it's kind of like a big page is turned.
Can I just chime in and say one more thing? I don't think we've covered it. It's regarding the in-person training on Sunday. Just so all of you all know, we will provide a folder with the monitoring guide, the step-by-step monitoring guide. We'll provide a folder with a copy of the data sheet, the paper one. You're encouraged to set up the app using the training videos I put in the chat to practice with the app, but we will provide you with a paper data sheet and the protocol and a sticker for participating. Woohoo! So yeah, you don't have to worry about printing those out or bringing them. And if we do have the training video on setting up the app, and you can do that in 5 minutes or less by following that video. But yeah, if it feels like too much, just show up and we'll help you. So we're excited to see you on Sunday. It's a lot. So yeah, just show up and we'll walk you through everything.
And on the ISIS, I'm glad you brought up the app, because I don't think I had used the app. I had a partner who would always do the submissions, and he's no longer helping. but I did it and it's not intimidating. I am very intimidated by technology. And so it's a really intuitive and it's not difficult to use. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Isis. It's thank you, Susan, for finally she showed me this is what you use, and it was really easy.
All right, so again, I'll be sending out some more information about this, and we will meet at the parking lot at the library. That's 9 a.m., but remember, you set your clock back the night before. So it's always a nerve-wracking making plans on that Sunday. Again, no restroom, so go visit the San Leandro Marina restrooms beforehand. And then I'll also give information about how to view the recording if you're interested. I'll have to figure out how we're going to share it with people. Not something I've ever done before. And I always tell people there's a reason I work at the historic farm.
Christina, we can set that up through
Isis
Xerxes.
will help
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
All right. Any other questions from anyone before we take off? Oh, at what point will we know what site we are assigned to? Well, we would like to hear from you what sites you are interested in. You should communicate with your regional coordinator. So for Alameda County, it's me for most of the southern parts and Susan for the northern. And then Mia does most of the other Bay Area sites, and also Isis can help you out with that.
I think we'll coordinate. If you're coming to the in-person training on Sunday, we'll have a sign up talk, and we can pair you up with monitors that day too if you need a partner, or maybe you want to volunteer with someone who has been volunteering before, so maybe an experienced mentor. So yeah, we can do some of that on Sunday, and then yeah, I think in the next week or two, you'll be getting emails. If you haven't already locked in a plan with your coordinator, you'll probably be getting emails from your regional coordinator to officially get your site assignments. And you all sent in your preferences in the registration form too. So we have some of that information, but we do need to confirm that. And so Mia, sorry, did you want to add on to that?
I was just gonna say roughly the same thing, that we've had so much interest and we're trying to get everyone to their preferred site. If we need to match with a partner, we're trying to do that. So it's so exciting to see how many people are interested, and we're trying to do the sort right now. But be in touch if you want to weigh in to help us figure it out.
And I just wanted to say too, I'm going to be going out to certain sites. So if you want to join me on some of the days that I'm going out as well, I do a couple of different sites well, actually 3 different sites in the city of Alameda, and then also Oyster Bay and San Leandro. So I'll have some dates picked out before Sunday.
And we'll send all that information to you, group count opportunities, etc., beyond the in-person Sunday training. So we'll send that out in a follow-up email so you have that in one place. So don't worry about remembering it all right now.
All right. Well, I hope that all sunk in. And yeah, it's like Adrian was saying, it's really not that hard. The app is wonderful, and the hardest part is finding the monarchs at this point. So if you find a bunch, yay, that's the least of your worries. So we will see most of you on Sunday, I hope. Hope that rain holds off until later in the afternoon. If anything comes up before then, feel free to contact us at our emails, and you can look again for an email from me with better directions to the site coming up in a couple days. Right.
I have a question really quick.
Yeah, one last question.
Does rain cancel and does wind cancel on Sunday?
Oh,
Well, what do you think, Mia, Isis?
I didn't even check. Do we have it? Is it predicted for Sunday?
It
Oh gosh.
is,
It is. So
unfortunately.
we don't want to monitor in really, really strong winds or downpour
Bring an
situations.
umbrella.
Yeah, what I would say is, yeah, if it's misting or a light on and off rain, we can still do this training. If it's like thunder, lightning, branches are falling down, we will probably have to cancel that. So unless Adrian, do we have access to a classroom or inside spot near? No. Okay.
Yeah, we do. I'll make sure that we have a
we do.
backup plan. and,
Library.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, Adrian will come up with a backup plan and Christina will send that rain plan backup in the email that we'll send out to you all in the next day or two.
I can just say from my 30 years of leading hikes that you can never predict the rain in the Bay Area the day before. You just have to do it morning, and even in
Yeah.
a different location, it could be pouring rain in one spot and you drive to another location 10 miles away and it clears up. So I usually would never cancel anything unless I got to the site and it's storming at that moment. So I would plan on coming unless it's really obviously a huge storm or something. That's my feeling about it.
I agree. The Monarchs are still out there.
They are. Sometimes they go in their secret storm location though, but that's
It
another
is true.
matter.
It is true.
All right, everyone. Thanks again for coming. So wonderful to see all of your faces and hope to see you on Sunday.
Have a nice evening, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Great job. Good night. See you Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just gonna hang out unless for any last questions. here.
Yeah, we
I
can
got
make
like
sure
5
of
minutes,
that.
so yeah. Awesome.
You. Reagan, you ready for Lake Merritt?
Oh, maybe they're not around right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at the links
Ah.
and I heard my name.
I was just wondering how you feel about Lake Merritt.
Oh, well, I'm trying to hook up with the woman who is the counter there for the Monarch, and I assume she was also the counter for the eggs, and I assume she's also the overwinter counter. I don't know. I've just heard about her. I haven't met her.
Are you talking about Jackie?
It could be.
So we'll at this moment you are our Lake Merritt counter, and we'd like to find a partner with you. But
Oh,
we can
okay.
also